For the first time in a long time, we're coming to you talking about a Cards win and looking ahead. Welcome on into the show. Welcome on in, welcome on in, welcome on in. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where and from you are watching us. We got Cards win on the board. James, how does it feel to be back?
We went 6 months without football. It was a breath of fresh air. Amazing first quarter on Saturday.
Oh,
There's some sloppiness in the second quarter, but we'll talk about that. But it's just good to be back. It's
it
good that
is,
you
man.
have that to look forward to at the end of your week. And I think you have a quality team this year.
I do too. You know, we'll get into the Louisville stuff, but just general football, man, it feels so good. The past 3 days have been so refreshing. There's been some pretty good games on every night. And, in all for the viewers, we're recording this on Sunday morning, so we still have to watch Notre Dame, Miami, and then we'll have TCU, North Carolina. But it's been a pretty good weekend so far for the ACC, withstanding those two games, obviously.
Yeah.
Um,
I think Clemson last night, you found out their offense maybe has some question marks. They don't really have a solidified running back. They had that Randall who converted from wide receiver, and that seemed to pose a lot of issues, especially with that experienced defense that LSU has. We knew LSU was going to have a good defense. Probably wasn't the greatest situation to start your first game at running back, but I think that'll get lined out. They did have a couple injuries that I think they'll have to sort through. I think Williams went down early and didn't play most of the second half, and he's their wide receiver one. He's their doing everything guy on the outside. But overall, Clemson's secondary played well against Nussmeier and those speedy wide receivers. So I think even in a loss, Clemson has a lot of good things to take away compared to last year after Georgia.
Yeah, man, and we'll get into the Louisville stuff soon. So I'm sorry for the viewers. I don't want to bore you with general college football just yet, but I have to take my hat off. A little golf clap for Florida State for the Seminoles. Man, I don't know if that is a full indication on the state of Alabama, and that's a completely different conversation. But Florida State, they went out there, got a really good win for the league. And I'll tell you what, man, if Florida State screws around and wins 9 football games, the ACC gets really interesting really, really quickly. And you start having that 3-team conversation.
When you go back and watch the film on the Alabama-Florida State game, and I don't know if it's where we've played him 3 years in a row, it felt like the same Tommy C, like the same play calling. Like you knew what was coming, but Alabama just couldn't stop it.
Yeah.
Like you knew he was going to fake the read option and then pop for about 5-6 yards.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, again, hats off, Norvell, he's revamped his offense with that. And I mean, it looks like it could work. Florida State doesn't have the most difficult ACC schedules also, being very truthful. So you could see some special things going on down in Tally the rest of the season. I'm really interested to see how they continue to move forward there. But we'll get right into it, into the U of L stuff. First off, EKU, Cards win big. I don't think anyone's really surprised about that. How do you feel after the game?
Before I go into my full rant about the game, Isaac Brown, 6 carries, 126 yards. He looked like the best running back in the country, as you would prefer. I think it's going to be a special season. You didn't see that much Duke early, but I think that's fine. You'll mix that in. I'm very impressed with their defensive line. Cleb Lisbon is going to be a star. Wesley Bailey, he's going to cause a lot of issues. I think we're going to see that next week against a team like JMU. We'll talk about that later on. Rodney Johnson, he's something else on the outside. He came from Southern. We talked about it a little bit before the season started about how good we thought he was going to be. He's as good or better. Don't get me wrong, it is EKU, but I'm very, very high on how the defense played in our two high safety looks. That's one thing I wanted to pay close attention to. I wasn't really worried about the threat of losing. I was worried about allowing the deep ball, which at times against Jacksonville State and Austin Peay last year, we allowed a few. So it kind of told you early on there might be some problems there. Outside of one in like the fourth quarter, whenever our third strings were in, I think we did pretty well in limiting their plays. Then we forced them to have to grind out some drives offensively, clean up some penalties that hurt us. I think we had over 100 yards of penalties for the game.
I believe it was 115.
Yeah. A lot of them were like penalties that you didn't even need to do. There's slight holds, or honestly, I hate to say it, but it's dependent on who's reffing that day. Some refs won't call those, and maybe clean up a few drops. But it's the first game of the year. A lot of new guys. Outside of one throw, Miller Moss looked electric.
Yeah, that, and the way that I'm going to look at it, I said it enough last week. There's only so much you can take with an FCS game, especially one where your starters played one half. That first 25 minutes of football that Louisville played, man, they were scoring multiple touchdowns on any team in the country. Like when we saw firsthand, when that offense clicks, it clicks big. So I'm very excited about that. The defense, I hit on it last week as well. I wanted to see Ron scheme a good concept. He did that. I love to see that. The defensive line, again, granted for, the talent level that you're playing against, but they completely exceeded my expectations. I'm very fine with, the first 25 minutes. Now, the way the depth played in the second half, that's a little concerning to me. Obviously the penalties are a big concern for me, and the drops are a big concern. The penalties are a weird one because we have not seen that under a Jeff Brown team. That is not normal. And I'm sure that will get rectified this week in practice. I would not want to be in those film sessions this week because there will be some words said. But the drops are really concerning me because that was an issue last year.
Yeah.
And we know we just can't do that.
Before we move on, I want to give a shout out to true freshman Eric Hazard.
Yep.
He made the effort level in the play. He's the future on the edge. I'm very high on him. He's a Mr. Tennessee Titan, player of the year in the state of Tennessee. He comes in with a lot of hype. If he keeps playing like that when he does get reps, you may see him play more this year.
I think so. He could crack. He really could. And it's one of those. It's crazy to say also because the D line's so deep.
Yeah.
But getting into like the nitty gritty of it though, Miller Moss, with the exception of one throw, I mean, have yourself a day, young man. Have yourself a day. I know people are going to look at the stat line and they're going to say, "Oh, he threw 2 interceptions." There was a bad throw in there. I will say that, and we can't have that. Consistency is everything. That second interception though, man, you got to catch that ball, Meeks. You got to catch that, dude. You had 3 yards on 2 guys, put 2 hands on the ball. He really, really impressed me. The thing that I love to see with him is he takes his time and he goes through multiple reads. He's not a 1 or 2 read guy. He's checking down to 3 reads at a time. Love to see that. The wide receiver room, I mean, it is what we thought it was going to be. It's good. I think we need to start having the give Colin Lacey the ball more conversations, which they did a lot of cool things with Lacey, which I really liked. They brought him out of the backfield a few times, which I love. That's a great wrinkle. The O-line, they had some meshing issues those first 2 drives, which is to be expected when you are replacing 2 guys in the transfer portal. I get that. They did end up coming together and the scheme looked fine. It's the typical O-line thing that we see from Louisville where, they're pulling, they're moving guys constantly. And then the running back room, I mean, what can I say that we haven't said last year? You know what I mean? It is exactly what you thought. But do you have any other thoughts about the offense?
I just want to touch on Miller, went 17 for 25 for 223. He had a touchdown in there. He had 2 picks. As you said, one of them it should have been a catch. One of them was an overthrow. But the one thing I took away from Miller was all you heard if you talked to any USC fans before the season was, and their biggest gripe was Miller was he was way too sped up. Like he would just eye down guys. And don't get me wrong, as we touched on, that might be a credit to a poor offensive line that he had at USC. So he felt like he had to or get sacked. Yesterday, he took his time. He was going through all his reads. And I even on the overthrow, I think he made the right read. Like I wasn't questioning where the ball went. And I think over the course of the year, his offensive line's just going to get better, and I think the mechanics in this new offense, it's his first game. He spent 3 years in a completely different scheme.
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
Fine. You can go ahead.
I was just gonna say I came away with it. This looks like a top 15 offense.
Yeah, I got the same feeling about the offense. So I'm going to enter this game saying I don't expect great defense. I just want a top 50 defense. I want a defense that we're able to actually stop you, not rely on you stopping yourself. And I came out with what I already knew. I knew our linebacker room was special. Defensive line's a lot better than I expected them to be this early. And on the back end, Corey Gordon impressed me in some safety games. Like, I knew he's gonna be good, but he looked very good. He looked very quick back there. So I think you're looking at closer to a top 30 defense rather than top 50. I'm not willing to go any higher than top 30 this time because it is EKU.
Yeah, within again, and I'm going to keep saying it with regards to your opponent. The scheme looked completely different from last season. There is more pressure. They are artificially sending more linebackers in off that outside edge, and it's working because they're having to check down on the linebackers, and then you have a guy like a Club just free rushing on a quarterback. I love to see that. That's something I've said for a long time about Ron. There's not enough pressure, and it seems to be they're doing that. You talked about our two high looks. They look so much better this season. They look so much better. The positioning is different. They're about 3 yards back than what they were last year. I loved it. I came away from this defense thoroughly impressed, given the talent that we're playing against, and we'll get into this with the James Madison. I don't think you're going to learn very much about the defense next week, honestly. But I think we're in the right direction. And if you got a top 15 offense and you got a top 35 defense, you're a dangerous football team. You're a very dangerous team.
The speed on the edges is different this year. That was the issue. Like I know we had Ashton last year, but overall on the edge, we just didn't have speed. This year, we're quick on the edge. We're back there.
Yep.
You better know what you're doing before the snap, or AJ's gonna get back there. Clev's really good at bull rushing. And
yeah, I mean, there's just so much they can do because even your interior D line, they're good. Interior D line is not going to show up on the stat sheet, but those guys are eating 2 or 3 guys at a time in there, and they're freeing up the linebackers to free rush, and then because of that, the linebackers are getting picked up by a crack block guy, and then you got a guy like Cleveland. There's some magic there. There is some magic. And I guess the next thing we'll get into the special teams. Man, special team. This is going to be. Part of it's really good. Part of it's not very good. Colin Lacey, if you've been following him all the way back to Mobile, you know he's good at returning kicks. I mean, that's just to be given. We all knew this. No complaints there. I think he should be your kick returner, but maybe let's, have him not to return kicks against Eastern Kentucky within respect. But man, your kickoff coverage, dude. You cleaned it up last year. Probably a problem with it with kickoff coverage. You cleaned it up last year, but it looks to regress. You're going to have to get your special teams in check, especially on kickoffs, man. You can't be giving up guys, them starting on the 35. That's not an option in today's game.
I agree. I'm also concerned, and I think I don't know if I told you or Max this. We did have a blocked PAT. I'm right, it happens, but concerning to me that it came off the edge more against EKU. I feel like we should have been able to block that a little bit better.
Well, I'm willing to blame that one on the long. I don't like blaming people directly, but I'm able to blame that one on the long snapper. It was a really bad snap, and the backup just had a really hard time with the hold. It gave him about an extra second to get the kick off, and that's why that does happen.
Yeah, that's me nitpicking because like it is game against EKU, and like that's the thing about football. There's always something you can improve on. I think that would be one of them. I like the way Lacey looked on that 98 yard punt return. I think it was what it was actually putting it down as. Kick return, no, there's not much to write home about. We did good. I agree with you on the kick coverage. You kind of wish to be able to get people down inside the 20 to the 28 at the worst case scenario. I feel like consistently EKU was able to get to the 30, 35. Don't get me wrong, EKU has some guys over there, but you're going to see some other guys that are a lot quicker and a lot faster at changing direction on some of these teams, especially teams like Clemson and SMU.
Yep. But other than that, man, I'm really happy with the fan turnout for the game. It was completely exceeded my expectations.
Over 50,000.
Yeah, they announced attendance over 50. That's great. I think keep riding off that momentum. I know they sold 47,000 season tickets, so keep showing out, man. It looked good on television. We'll work on leaving after halftime. Once we get the people there, then we'll work on that. But just I guess my final thoughts. Who'd you have as your player of the game?
My player of the game was Clev Lubin.
I'm going with Colin Lacey. And then just one last thing about Eastern. Do you feel better now than you did a year ago after Austin P?
Yeah. Austin Peay
Yeah.
was a team that I think Eastern's a step up in quality from what Austin Peay was at their level. Austin Peay had trouble with teams inside their own conference. Eastern's been on the uptick in terms of their finishes in that conference. And I think they were able to pose a lot of issues that we struggled with last year that we were able to handle a lot better.
Yeah, I agree. My big thing is the starters look good for the most part. There's obviously some issues with depth and specifically backup quarterback. But if we're learning that against Eastern, I'm fine. That second half is a glorified practice essentially. But that's gonna be enough on Eastern. It was a game, glad to be 1-0. But turning the page, so we have JMU Friday night football. I love my Friday night football here at Louisville. JMU, man, it mirrors a lot the Jacksonville State thing. It really does last season. I mean, JMU, they're a very capable ball team. Jacksonville State was a very capable ball team last year that won a lot of football games. If you look at what JMU did yesterday, they beat up on an FCS team. It's an interesting program. I think it is not your prototypical G5. Granted, the betting line has not come out yet. I would assume that betting line is going to be somewhere from 17 to 21. I think that sounds right in that area. They just I watched their game, this morning on Sunday morning. The big thing that I took away is they're trying to run the damn ball. They want to run the ball all over you. And I don't know if that's going to, well, I mean, I know it's not going to work against Louisville. That's the one thing I'm not concerned about. That Louisville defense is the run defense. And it's not a winning strategy for them. JMU especially likes to run the ball inside the tackles, and I just don't see them having the ability to do that.
Well, don't get me wrong, they were playing Weber State, but they had two running backs that both ran for 10 yards per carry. I think one was 12.6, one's right at 9.9. So they're a team that they like to run, but they're not a team that's going to small gas you. They rely heavily on those large 20, 30-yard runs. Get back
Yeah.
on it. They have a quality quarterback that can beat you in his arm and Barnett.
Well, the thing with Barnett, I wasn't very impressed with him throwing the ball. I know he's coming off surgery. I thought Solka, I don't know. It's one of those. I think he's going to try to run it on you. Barnett is. I don't think you see Solka on Friday night. I think you just see Barnett. But I think you're going to play that mobile quarterback game. So you're going to play a lot of that, zone read, run option read stuff. And, you're just going to have to make good decisions, which luckily against, Eastern tried that run option multiple times on an individual outside edge, and Louisville responded great every single time.
I agree. I think you're going to see a lot of RPO zone read concepts. And I honestly think that might be the strength of the defense this year is their ability to judge pre-snap kind of what the options are and kind of delegate where people need to be. Because there's a couple times on RPO routes that Johnson would stay with the wide receiver and Cleve would crash down to the outside and let the interior D line handle the running back if he's handed the ball. So it kind of covers all 3 points of interest on the play. If you're able to do that here, I think it gets out of hand pretty quickly.
Yeah, the experience on the defense really shines through in those moments. And this is, I know it sounds crazy to say, but in the transfer portal era, this is an experienced defense. Granted, maybe not at Louisville, but they played a lot of football. Hitting on the running backs for JMU, Petaway, he's going to get majority of your carries. He was their starter. I think he had just shy of 100 yards, if I'm not mistaken, maybe like 99 or something. He's going to get majority of your carries. Personally, though, watch out for Wayne Knight. Wayne Knight is their backup. That kid is electric, and that they will filter him in. But that kid is quick. His only downside is he's a little undersized. But watch out for Wayne Knight. That kid, he's going to cause problems. Again, and something that we've been talking a lot about the run game. They don't really have a true wide receiver one. That was kind of their big thing this whole season, or going into the season, was, well, who's going to step up wide receiver? They're moving the ball around a lot. They're not particularly throwing it very much, at least as much as I think they could be. So that's a good sign. I think this is just going to be a game where the linebacker core and the D line are just going to shine.
Yeah, on the offensive side of the ball, I think going in, what you expect for us is you want to clean up the drops. That's primary. I think the penalties are one thing that under Brom you see, he's going to take care of. So I'm not as worried about seeing that. You're gonna still probably have some moments where the offensive line needs to ease their way into the game because they're still a new unit. There's a lot of depth there. They try to play a lot of guys, as Jeff likes to do. But I think as long I don't no turnovers, I'd like to have a game with no turnovers. I'm not very concerned about the running backs. I don't think we need to really touch on that. I'd like to see the tight ends utilized a little bit more in this game. I think you have a solid room there. Dylan got some playing time this week. Um, I'd like turnover free and try to avoid any drops. Any more than two, I think you could is reason to be concerned.
Yeah, I agree. This isn't disrespectful to James Madison. I think they have a very good defense for the Sun Belt level, and they are extremely physical. With that being said, though, Louisville should be able to score at will. And I would like to see us, continue to try to ease in the playbook, try a few new little things here and there, but don't give it all away. But I'm just not concerned with, moving the ball on offense with
Okay.
all due respect to the Dukes. And then one last thing for James Madison, they're very well coached, and it shows on all three phases of the game, especially in the special teams. They are very, very well coached. They were able to get a punt yesterday, block a punt. Sorry, they were able to block a punt yesterday, and they did it just from a scheme matchup. Just don't let your guard down on these guys because they will throw you some weird looking formations on special teams.
I'll say this about JMU. There's a reason you see so many people have them in their college football playoff. This isn't a team that you like. Louisville should score at will, but they have to show up. They're not a team you can just
Yes.
come like show up to work and not give your all because they can get you. Um, I think especially after it's going to touch a little bit on the general college football thing, but especially after what happened in Southern Florida, JMU's a front runner for that G5 spot. So this is a quality football team coming into Louisville Friday night.
Yeah, man, do not sleep on them because this is JMU's most important game on the schedule. Very, very upfront. If JMU goes into Louisville and wins, I would expect them to be in the college football playoff. Um, do not sleep on them. This is their most important game on the schedule. And kind of taking, the Pat Kelsey approach, this is the most important game on your schedule. Mm-hmm. Every week is the most important game. Don't sleep. Get out on top of them early and just continuously apply pressure, which I think you're going to be able to do. With that being said, I guess we'll just get right into predictions. What are you saying for predictions?
I think I got Louisville 35-17.
I'm going to take Louisville by 3 touchdowns. Kind of hit on it. I don't think their defense can stop us. I think our defense matches up really well to what they're trying to do. Again, this is a good ball team, but there is a major talent discrepancy. I think Moss probably throws for over 300 yards, and I could see Isaac rushing for over 150. It's just going to be one of those games. And I really the one thing I hope the attendance looks really good. I hope we get above 50,000 again. I would love to see like 54 to 55. Treat this game seriously. We say it every year. Louisville's done this thing recently where they schedule a really good G6 like every year for the past 5 years, it feels like. Take this game seriously because this team can beat you if you do not show up. All right, and with that being said, we're going to get into our picks section that we've been doing. We did it last week. We both did fairly decently. We're above 500, so we'll keep that going. This week, we're going to just kind of go through a few games, brief little summary of what's going down. Week 2, not a very good week compared to week 1, by the way. Something I've noticed. There are good matchups here and there, but it's not gangbangers or anything like this week. First game we got Iowa State and Iowa. Little Cyhawk action. Who you taking?
So both teams are kind of awkward this year. Iowa State seems messy. They look messy in Dublin. They started slow against South Dakota this week. Iowa is your typical Iowa team. They're going to be very good on the defensive side of the ball. Their offense seems to be coming along, but that's the issue with the Cyhawk game. It's always week 2, week 3. So by the time their offense actually gets some rhythm, usually Iowa State's already got them. Iowa State's won the last 2. I think last year it was at Iowa. So I honestly, step by step, I think Rocco Beck is going to have some issues due to the poor offensive line. We saw that in Dublin. I'm going to Iowa here.
I'm kind of the opposite of you. I'm going to take Iowa State. I think their offense has had a little more time to gel, and I don't trust an Iowa offense ever in my life. I've been burned too many times on that.
I think it's your typical Iowa game where it's gonna be like a 17-13 game. I'm just not sold on the skill position guys on Iowa State enough. I think Rocco's a dude over there. I, his weapons aren't as good as they were last year.
Yep. And now moving forward, we have college game day, and I would assume it is big noon kickoff. I haven't seen it officially announced yet, but I would assume it is. That is Michigan and Oklahoma. I'm going to go first on this one if you don't mind. I'm taking Oklahoma. I don't trust Michigan at all. Do not trust them. There's too many unknowns, and Oklahoma has a ball team this year.
There's a lot of unknowns for both sides of the ball. Oklahoma's coming off a season where they only won 4 games. Michigan's coming off a season where I think they won 4 as well, but they had that big win. They lost a lot of the defensive side of the ball. They're starting a true freshman in Underwood. They're bringing him into Norman against the Venables coach defense. And the thing about Brett Venables, even whenever they were bad as a team on offense, they always had a decent to great defense. It's going to cause a lot of issues for Underwood early and especially late whenever he starts throwing in stunts on the defensive line. Oklahoma wins this by at least 2 touchdowns.
Moving on forward, we have Baylor and SMU. I believe this is the last time this game is scheduled. Is that correct?
I believe so. This is a hard one this year, too.
It is. It is. Baylor, they didn't look very good against Auburn, in my honest opinion.
No.
Had a very hard time moving the ball. I'm going to take SMU here. I think SMU has the more frontline talent than Auburn. I think SMU has a more frontline talent than Baylor. Give me Kevin Jennings. I think he has a big game, and give me the Ponies by at least 2 touchdowns.
So I think it's closer than this. I agree with the SMU pick, but I think I'm just not sold on either team's defense.
Mhm.
Like SMU played like the FCS opponent this week. They allowed 13 points, but that team was driving. They were just stalling out like around the 40. I'm not as sold on SMU's offense either. Like it's saying that they were a lot more reliant on Kevin Jennings' legs than they were last year. They still have guys on the outside. A lot of speedsters, but I don't think they're as fluid on route running. I don't think they're as solid of a team this early on in the season. Like last year, BYU got them week 2. So I think they might gel as the year goes on. Right now, I think they're able to get out, especially with the game being in Dallas. So I think SMU wins this game. You're looking at a game like 24-17 where both teams kind of struggle early.
Yeah. All right. Moving forward, I think this is the most interesting game this week. This is Duke and Illinois, and it's crazy to say that those 2 football programs are interesting, but I really think it is. Duke, they got the $6 million man back there, Darian Mensah. They got some hype this year. I think they have a good ball team. I think they're going to do some interesting things. The other side of the coin, Illinois has some legit momentum. I don't think Illinois is that good, if you want my honest opinion. I don't think they are a top 15 team. I think that, Duke could get a win here, and everything I just said about the ACC looking good, if the ACC can pick up Duke over Illinois, I'm going to be the most obnoxious person on Twitter. These type of games are great. It gives a lot of data points comparing the conferences. I love to see them played. I believe this game is in Durham, correct?
Yeah.
Give me the $6 million man. I think Duke gets the upset.
So this game is on paper. These teams mirror each other a lot. They rely heavily on their quarterback, who's more dual threat. Duke more than Illinois. The thing that I keep coming to is Duke had some issues through 3 quarters stopping Elon. Illinois, although they're not a top 15 team, I do believe that Illinois is a team that's top 30 in the country. I'm not sold that Duke is. I'm not as high on Darian Mensah as some people in the national media. I think he's a guy that can win you some football games, but I don't think he's a guy that can single-handedly carry an offense. I think Duke struggles in their skill position players. I question if I think they have at or slightly worse than what Tulane had last year for Darian Mensah. Tulane was a very good G5 last year. I think Altmaier and Illinois are able to get it done just on the back of their defense. I think it's going to be a game like 21-17. I think it's a close one that can go either way, but I feel like that Big Ten defense and that defensive line that's legit of Illinois. If they don't have anything, they have a huge athletic defensive line. I think they're able to stop the running game.
Okay. And then moving forward, a game I did not think was going to be interesting that is got a lot more interesting this past weekend. Florida, South Florida. First off, what I'm going to say about this game, everything we just said about JMU at Louisville applies to South Florida. This is the most important game probably in 10 years down there in Tampa. If South Florida can find a way to win this game, they are the clear front runner for the G5. They looked solid against Boise. I don't know how good Boise is. Boise doesn't look particularly good. I don't think that preseason top 25 ranking was warranted. This is a big game, man, for the Bulls. They are gonna have a lot of juice going into this game. This is one of those typical, hey, I played the lower ranked school in the state. That school didn't recruit me. I'm gonna go kick their ass. With all that being said, I think DJ Lagway throws for 4 touchdowns and Florida wins by 30 points.
See, I agree. I think
You
Florida
like
wins.
that, don't you? You like that, didn't you?
I agree Florida wins this game, but I don't think it's on the back of Lagway's arm. I think it's going to be kind of controversial in the way things went this past weekend because I feel like USF's defense was able to rely heavily on stacking the box and preventing Boise from running the ball. I think that's more to say with the running offense of Boise than USF's defense. I think that there's some true speed and I think Florida runs for over 200 yards in this game, and I think their defensive line's able to keep Brown under 50 yards rushing. And I'm not the biggest fan of his throwing the ball. Like he has a nice deep ball, but in intermediate and short game, he seems to sell stuff a lot. And I think against the secondary of Florida, they're going to be a couple times they're going to just get him. I think Florida wins this game like 45-14.
Yeah. All right, going on to our next game. I thought this was going to be an interesting game earlier this week when we picked these games. I now know it will not be. That is Oregon and Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State does not look good.
No,
They look bad.
and I think the sticker theme, if you want to watch this game, is Mike Gundy needs to show some form of fight, or his seat has never been hotter in Stillwater. And then on the Oregon side of things, a lot of people had clamored that they were going to have to rebuild slightly after the amount they lost last year on the offensive side of the ball. From week one, don't get me wrong, it was week one that was a lesser opponent, but it looks to be they've just reloaded and they have a lot of youth that are ready to make some plays.
Mm-hmm.
So
I got to take Oregon by a lot. Also, things have not looked bleaker in Oklahoma State in probably 20 years. I mean, that program looks to be in a very rough spot right now. I hope it doesn't come to a coaching change because I like Mike Gundy personally, and he is a staple down there. But it's looking pretty bleak. So yeah, give me Oregon by a lot. And then going on to our final game, big G5 matchup, Western Kentucky and Toledo.
This game's an interesting one. Toledo's coming off a game at Kentucky where they lost 24-16. One of the surprising issues I saw for them, I don't know if it's more them or Kentucky's D line because they got some dudes on that D line. Trainum, their big transfer running back, only had 41 yards on 14 carries. I think Western has a better team than Kentucky this year. I don't know if their defense is as good, but their offense definitely is. They're going to have to be able to run the ball for more. I think they do. But I think Western's able to get this done just solely on the offensive firepower. And I think it's a game that it'd be the first of 30. I think I got 38-20, 38-27 Western Kentucky.
I'm with you also, dude. I'm going to take Western and purely based off their offense. If you sit down and you really look, the Sam Houston team that they scored, I think 42 points on is supposed to be a pretty good defense for that level of CUSA play. I think they have a very good offense. I think they're able to stretch out the ball here, and I think they do get the win. With all of that being said, this is a massive week for the G5 altogether.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you look at it, you got this JMU Louisville game. You got the South Florida game. You have this Western Toledo game, which that Western Toledo game, for all the conversations that we have about matching the power conferences next to each other, is the same conversation. Okay. But that's it for our pick segment. Follow along, please, throughout all the weeks. If you want to see our picks like on a graphic or anything like that, check us out on Twitter at Cardinal Companions. We'll have it posted probably Tuesday, Wednesday. If you want to bet along with us, good luck. I'm not very good at betting, so may God be with you. Other than that, though, fun week of week 1 football. Looking forward to week 2. I love that we have a Friday night game, so I get to watch all these great games on Saturday. Any final closing thoughts from you, James, about EKU or James Madison?
If you're anywhere around Louisville on Friday night, go out to the stadium, be loud. It's going to be a night game. We should be fine. Should be a lot of fun for some good Louisville football. Um, Shout out EKU for coming. They have a lot of promise down there in the FCS slate. Their running offense actually impressed me in that second half. Don't get me wrong, it was our second string. I don't want us talking so positive about us to take away from how they played. They played a lot better than a lot of people in the national media would have expected. But I like our team.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a good season.
My final closing thoughts. Good job beating Eastern. You have a lot you have to work on, but you were on the cusp of having a very dangerous team. If you fix the little things, we start having some very fun conversations here in Louisville land. Do not sleep on James Madison, though, because if you sleep on James Madison, they have shown time and time again they can beat you. With all that being said, though, thank you guys so much for watching. Please share, subscribe, like, all of that good stuff. Check us out over on Twitter at the Cards Companion. We do weekly live shows, all that good stuff. And then stay locked in here. We will continue to bring you guys more great content. Thank you so much for watching again, and have a great day.
Go Cards.
Go Cards.